Adam Taxon, Midday Report, a little early, just the way my schedule is working, ironically, because my Sunrise Report was a little late, but I want to get to the beach a little bit before heading up to the Jacksonville area for something later today. So let's talk about Tomi Lahren, and in part because more people watch if I put that in the title, but I think there is something important to say. First of all, I think I came up with a good word to describe her sort of modus operandi. I think it doesn't sound right, but it looks right when I put the word cliche and cheerleads together. Cheerleads or clicheerleads. I don't know how you would pronounce it, but it looks right when I say it. I think you know what I'm talking about. And I have that as Tomi Lahren cheerleads for Trumpcare while making sure you can't miss seeing quite a bit of her small breasts. You sexist lech! For looking, of course. Yeah, even though she puts it right in front of you. And as if we're not supposed to notice, you know. I mean, look, what does it say about a society, in a society where people wouldn't notice something like that? I mean, I don't know. But my point is, this phenomenon is not good. Nothing against her personally, but the promotion of her as if she's someone we should listen to, a voice that should be listened to. I got to speak out against it because it's being set up for failure. She's going to embarrass herself before too long, as they're going to promote her, the powers that be, as the voice of conservatism in the younger generation, as if she's a voice that should be taken seriously when everyone knows why she has a big audience. And then it's going to be used to make conservatism look dumb. By the way, I think I came up with a good analogy. Who her body language and delivery reminds me of in terms of the, I'm so hot. Don't you wish you had me? Because look at her facial expressions sometimes. It reminds me of Brittany McHenry, who was in that really ugly video a couple years ago in which she berated a parking lot attendant who was just doing her job because her car was illegally parked after it had been impounded or something. And she said, "Oh, don't you wish you were me? I have a great job at ESPN." I forget the exact words. Yeah, you're fat and stuff like that, and just that's why you work in a towing lot. I'm a superstar, but she just lost her job with ESPN, by the way. But that's who, you know, Britt McHenry is known as something of a diva. I've seen the stuff in her, what was said about her by Beck. Certainly I'm not saying she's like that, but her delivery in like, you know, you want some of this, so keep watching me, even though it's really about my reporting. But you know you want some of this. Watch her body language sometimes. That's the message it's sending. So I think I had a good headline in there. I also put in there, time to be honest with yourself about why you're watching her. And I get what she's doing. I know why she's advancing her career, making the most of what she has. I almost don't hold that against it, but you know, that doesn't mean we can't say why maybe she should not be the first conservative voice people listen to. And my voice is, hey, look, I can understand why you might be into her, but just go to Hooters if that's what you want to see so badly, or go to the beach if that's what you want to look at. But, you know, you don't have to justify it. Just do it if you want to look at a pretty young 22, 23-year-old. But while you're there, just start reading some stuff that's a lot more intelligent than what she's offering. For example, Karl Denninger. He's a libertarian writer, and you can actually learn something for real with some actual facts about the healthcare situation. And I thought I have a good joke. You know, I put the link to her final thoughts, and I, of course, call it if only they really were her final thoughts. But we're going to be hearing a lot from her. Her Facebook Live is back. She's reached a settlement with Beck. And this one video has gotten 5 million views in less than 48 hours. And I have a couple good links, including substantive stuff. But let's talk about, first of all, her video, then I'm going to go into something substantive. I went through it, and just a few things came to mind, like to illustrate how not brilliant she is and how not worth your listening to. She says, at one point, does it get rid of the entitlement program loved by socialists like Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas? Well, that's a yellow flag for me when someone says Pocahontas instead of Pocahontas. And by the way, President Trump does that too. I don't know why he does that. I mean, maybe he assumes his audience isn't that clever, whatever, but it's Pocahontas, just like it's Sitting Bush or Hunts at Whole Foods or Liawatha. There are some great nicknames for Elizabeth Warren. What's the other one? I made up this one. Someone else probably came up with it, but I call her Crazy Horse Face too. But it's not Pocahontas. It's Pocahontas. F-A-U-X-H, etc. And I wish Tomi would know that. And by the way, I still want to know it's her parents' thing. How does she have the name Tomi? What is it short for? I understand Tammy, T-O-M-I. I'm not going to hold that against her. Frankly, my name's kind of silly too. Adam, I've learned in recent years, being in the Jewish community, observant Jews don't name their kid Adam or Adam, as it would be in Hebrew. In fact, that's not my Hebrew name. I sort of chose a Hebrew name for myself because it's like a generic term meaning man. I guess it would be like guy. So I'm not one to talk. But then she also says at one point, and I don't like her authoritative tone when she's reading off a script. Maybe she writes it herself, but she doesn't cite any sources. I'm very careful to cite sources when I do this. Sometimes you'll be able to tell from the tone of my voice what's original. Never any citation of any sources or anything. That bothers me. I'm careful, and I go to a lot of trouble to do that. She explains, okay, that if it were President Hillary, and I'm on the same side as her politically, we'd be moving towards social medicine and single payer, as opposed to now. But know what? Guess what? We still are. I mean, there are a lot of subtleties in the process. This does not get away the possibility. Forget the fact that it's only been passed in the House at this point. The Senate's a lot more of a challenge. And not that that's addressed in her video, but we're still moving towards socialized medicine and single payer. And what if it does scale back a little bit and it somehow fails and they say, okay, we've had a chance, now we definitely have to have single payer. That could happen, but that's not even addressed. And she informs us that there are lazy sacks of the S word, and she says it, meaning poo-poo, at the expense of hardworking Americans. So she likes to, I don't know why she feels the need to use profanity. Profanity has its place, believe me. If I'm talking about defecation or stooping or sexual intercourse, the S word and the F word have its place. Or if I'm angry and I want to use it as an expression, it has a place. But to use it as an adjective when it's very cliched and adds nothing, I don't like profanity in that case. If it adds nothing to a conversation, why do you use it? And frankly, there are enough other words that are funnier for defecation and sexual intercourse. I like stooping. I happen to be Jewish. Yiddish has a lot of words for these kinds of things. So maybe it's a little bit of an advantage, but I don't think you need to use that when it's not in the context of what it actually means or as a sort of angry explanation. I understand F-U is a very is a very useful expression. It means something, and that's the only way you can say it. And, the MF word really it's so funny how that sounds so much better when black people say it. It's just better said. And if you have to take I guess dump works pretty well, but the S word works pretty well if you want to use that figure of speech. But she doesn't do it that way. And yet we're supposed to believe she's this conservative woman, which I, by the way, think is just a fraud. And then she says it's not in the Constitution that taxpayers should pay for other people's health care. Yeah, I agree with that. But without any acknowledgement about the problem she ran into that led to her departure from the Blaze and with Glenn Beck her utter confusion about the Constitution and abortion. There's nowhere in the Constitution that protects a woman's right to choose, as she puts it. But that's totally overlooked, especially given the current news about her. She tells us Lizzie Warren, she's full of, and uses the S word, referring to fecal matter again there. Okay, why did you have to use the S word? Couldn't you find a more creative, smarter way to express the same thing? And she also has to talk like crudely, just not like a lady. Asses is okay. I know it's funny the way I say it. It's a Philly accent, and it's funny how I say water and coffee too, I'm sure. But she's like, what's sad is hardworking Americans busting their asses. But there's another more lady-like way to say it. And here's another thing I noticed. Her eyes remain fixed on the screen the whole time. Like, she doesn't move it around like that. I know I do that. I have notes. I'm reading for notes. I wrote them. But why are her eyes fixed on the screen? Because she's reading it, whether she wrote it or someone else wrote it or not. But her eyes are fixed on the screen. Watch the video. Okay, she then crudely says, again, this is a woman who wants to be seen as a glamorous lady. Obama didn't have the balls to enforce the red line in Syria. She says it like that. Not ladylike. She gets into a list of President Trump's accomplishments during his first 100 days. I made an effort to do that on my show Backlash, but I did it Sunday, 100 days into it. Why is she talking about this now? The video came out 48 hours ago, so that's 105 days. We're not talking about the 100 days anymore. She also says Americans are pretty stoked about Trump. Now, I remember when I came out of college in '93, I worked in banking in New York, I remember the sort of cool guy there, and he was cool, I liked him, used the term stoked, and it was fresh and new, but that was 24 years ago now. Stoked is not a fresh word. You're not cool with this generation by using the term stoked. And the way her body language was when she said it is talking, it was as if stoked. Yeah, hey, I'm with it. I'm using that term. It's like saying, well, actually, don't go there. Probably would have been about 10 years after that. Or doing like the raise the roof thing would have been like 5-10 years after that. It's not a fresh expression. Oh, here's another thing. She goes off at one point on women walking with vaginas on their head. What? Did you edit that? No. They were wearing cat hats. They were. Didn't you notice that? I mean, they were not. First of all, I mean, technically, vagina is sort of also refers to the hole, but I'm not even getting into gynecological stuff. They weren't wearing that on their heads. They were wearing cat ears. I know what the message was. She cockily teases Democrats about how they're just helping Trump in 2020. Well, no, not necessarily. But, hey, Tomi Lahren, she writes, she is not a bimbo. Easy to be critical of what she says, but you're not doing any better. So why the hell are you watching? I don't know you. I don't care if you watch. She is a bimbo. Her tits are hanging out on the show. She is. She's playing certain things, and I'm getting that. I am easy critical. I don't think people should listen to her. I don't think she should be set up as the voice of conservatism. I'm not doing any better. So why are you watching me? I'm not famous, and I'm certainly not sexually appealing, which at least she has. In that regard, why are you watching me? I don't know you. You have no loyalty to me. Don't watch me then. But she deserves criticism. And yeah, I'm being very particular about my criticism. So again, why are you watching me? If you were going to write, she is not a bimbo, easy to be critical of what she says, but you're not doing any better. I know why you're watching it, because you, Tomi Lahren, I don't know who you are, but you want to be the savior. And I know what psychologically is going on with you, Tomi Lahren. You are going to be her protector because it makes you feel like more of a man to protect Tomi from me, right? It fulfills some psychological need. I won't go into that right now, but I know what's going on there. And then she ends with God bless, like as if it's, what? After the language you're using, after your boobs are hanging out, and I'm going to get to that in a second, you're giving me a God bless to convince us that you're really you're really a conservative Christian at heart, despite your profanity? Come on. That's just contempt for your office. And then she does this at the end. Take care with her hands. What is that supposed to say? I don't know. Watch it. See the very end of it. Hit pause a few times and just see the expressions on her face. It's very interesting. It's like just at random times. It's as if it's like she has this contempt for the audience. She's just like, look at me. I'm so much better than you. It really reminds me of Britt McHenry, not the angry video, berating a towing company employee, but just Britt McHenry. Just the attitude, like, look how hot I am. So I know you're going to think I'm a great reporter, even though it's really about how hot I am. And you're not going to complain about it. I mean, she may have gotten the job if she opened the door. A lot of people get their jobs through connections, but don't make me sort of take you seriously. And by the way, I'm using Britt McHenry as an example, not Erin Andrews. Very pretty woman, very good reporter on ESPN. I'm not saying every pretty reporter is like that, because they're not. And by the way, Ann Coulter, obviously in her mid-50s now, but she is very attractive, again, in her mid-50s now, and smart, and probably prettier if you correct for age at 23. Well, we'll see. I don't even know if she was blonde then. Whatever. Than Tomi Lahren was. But it's, again, I wrote this as my note. It's the expression on her face that basically says, you want to shtup me. But she's not that hot. I mean, look, it's a lot of the hair. She's got the long blonde hair. She's got the right amount of time in the tanning salon. And, she dresses, the way she dresses, okay, her shirt is very low cut. So we are going to, when she chooses to dress that way, evaluate her sexually, and look at her that way. I mean, I know many times in life, women try to disarm you with their charm at their age. Okay, they can try, but at the same time, some of us will push back against this. You know what? I have been involved, including married to someone who actually was more attractive than you, Tomi. So it doesn't work with me. It doesn't work with a lot of guys out there. And there are guys who may not have been with someone that attractive, but say, you know what? That doesn't mean I have to listen to you on healthcare, even though you're an attractive young woman. It's a charming tan dress, but why are her breasts hanging out? If you want to be taken seriously, you don't need to do that. It's nice, okay, go to Hooters, I like a pretty woman, but it's very calculated, and, you know, and it's as if, you know, there were cynical calculations that went into that, but then she's a victim of sexism if you don't take what she says as seriously as if it's coming from Karl Denninger, and we're going to get to him in a second, or a brilliant white Jewish guy like David Goldman or Daniel Greenfield, who are smarter and better writers and better at expressing themselves than she is. But the media is going to say, she is the fresh, passionate voice of conservative millennials, almost to make it look like conservative millennials are stupid, because she's not that smart. And she doesn't read books, and, you know, whatever. I understand why guys watch her, and I understand why a lot of women like her, because she's tough, and, you know, a lot of females probably think, well, I can be like that. They probably need to spend more time at the gym and the tanning salon. I understand the appeal, but let's not get it confused with quality arguments and it being worth your time. That's all I'm saying. Now that I've gone into that, I don't want to call it a rant. I think it's a really fair criticism, and you are welcome to disagree, but here, let me talk about someone who is worth your attention. He's a little harsh on Trump. You may not have the libertarian perspective, but he's worth paying attention to. Karl Denninger, marketticker.org, marketticker.org with a hyphen between market and ticker. I put the links up there as I put the link into Tommy's video. And he has a thing, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to get to some selected comments from it. It's called Go Ahead and Cheer the Fraud. And I'm pro-Trump, but that doesn't mean he's immune to criticism. I'm certainly not a cliched cheerleader for Trump. Here's what Denninger writes. The lies are ridiculous. Obamacare has not been repealed nor replaced. Deductibles and premiums will not come down because exactly nothing has been done to address the underlying cost of medical care. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm reading you what an expert has to say. I give credit where credit's due. Nothing has been done to address the underlying cost of medical care. And that is, of course, what drives the cost of so-called health insurance. And I'm not going to get into it here. Whether it's really traditional insurance or something else is a totally different matter. Insurance prepares you for risk and something that's unlikely, as opposed to something that's likely, including very routine trips to the doctor, which is not something you're at risk for. It's just asking people to pay for it. Denninger goes on, it also probably won't pass the Senate, which, by the way, Tomi Lahren didn't even mention, so that the House has done so is immaterial. But go ahead and take a victory lap, Mr. Trump, for something that hasn't passed the Senate yet. And by the way, may I remind you that the executive, which you head, the executive branch that is, can cut the cost of medical care by 80% or more in an afternoon. You simply need to enforce the law. 15 U.S.C., that's 15 U.S. Code Section 2, which is related to monopolizing trade being a felony. Healthcare monopoly, you can figure it out. Specifically, and he writes, which is your bleep job, in which you took an oath to do, and have, since your inauguration, serially and intentionally violated every single day since. Denninger goes on. There is not one place in this country where a gas station that refused to tell you how much the gas cost until after you pumped it and disclosed who you had your car insurance through, then charged a price that was 1,000% or more different between different people based on their insurance company, and the make and model of the car would be in business for more than 30 minutes. If any material percentage of gas stations in a town or region, that's known as market power, got together and decided to do this sort of thing in concert, they would all be under arrest and indicted for conspiring to restrain trade, fix prices, and force tied sales, all of which are illegal under laws that have stood for more than 100 years, all of which you pretend do not exist when it comes to medically related firms, despite not one but two Supreme Court decisions that say otherwise. How, by the way, is Karl Denninger? It's not me, not my words. How is Karl Denninger doing in comparison to what Tomi Lahren had to say? Just curious. Going on with what Denninger wrote. You and the rest of the profane thieves in Washington, D.C., along with the state houses, governors, and attorneys general of this nation, are thugs and co-conspirators with those who financially bleeped this nation's people on a daily basis. You deserve spit on your shoes and the middle finger in your face. So go ahead and make speeches in front of the microphone. I know good and damn well why you won't enforce the law. If you did, the economy would correct in the short term by 15%. Yes, it would rapidly be reallocated to other places, but until it did, which would take anywhere from a few months to a couple of years, the GDP decline would be real, and none of you crooks can have that, can you? Well, enjoy the cheering, Mr. President, because the math says that in 4 years you're going to try to blow another $600 billion a year on Medicare and Medicaid because you won't collapse the cost of medical scams, and that amount will be going up every single year at an exponential rate. The next year, it'll be close to $800 billion and so on. You know damn well you can't finance that, and you're not going to get out of office before it blows up in your face, unlike Obama was able to. All right. Now let's get to responses. They're often very good responses. I think Karl Denninger at Market Ticker selects them, only the best ones, to put up there because there really are very few bad ones up there. I know he probably has a pretty intelligent audience, but he must be selective about that, and I appreciate that, and I've selected from those. So let's read what some of those are. This is a response to, you deserve spit on your shoes and the middle finger in your face and a boot up your ass. And then the person responds, and a boot up your ass. And goes on, I've seen a lot of loudmouth braggarts in my time, but at least they had some genuine accomplishments. Trump's first 100 days have been a fraud by either renegement of virtually every campaign promise or poisoning deals so they would never pass. The same goes for the cowardly Republicans in both houses. Total deflection to hide the facts. Trump has no intent to fix anything, pretend and poison the well of change. He then refuses to act within the power of his own office to enforce the law. Total dereliction of duty. Should change name to Donald F. Trod, as fraud is his middle name. Again, I bring you the comments, regardless of what I may personally think. Another one that's pretty harsh on President Trump. A friend of mine calls him President Fidget. For people of a wider vocabulary, this would be a contradiction of the phrase effing idiot. Seeing that Trump has the vocabulary skills of a fifth grader, which I don't think is true, the phrase has been put into a format that is more easily understood by him, effing idiot. I think it ought to be on a t-shirt. Another comment. My last teeny tiny shred of hope someone would stand up and do the right thing went out the window today as my representative Mark Meadows, who was a holdout, sold his soul and vote for the fraud. I am done. I'm preparing as best as I can for the blow up. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I thought I had a good joke about whether Tammy's, you saw the shirt she's wearing, so-called performance deserves an A or B, clearly not a C. You know what I mean. Okay, back to the comments. Building up the cash pile and HSA, getting ready for some ugly. The only opportunity I see is after the healthcare collapse is an opportunity for AI, that's artificial intelligence, doctors to replace a lot of the expensive doctor labor that follows the same diagnostic process map, but has the advantage of pure empiricism and having access to all medical data. I'm also thinking, you've seen Idiocracy, probably, hopefully. If you haven't, you should. There's a great scene about in the pretty stupid society, the computers in the hospital. Anyhow, speed and accuracy would improve while driving down operating costs. If the private sector can't pick up the torch, then the USG needs to make one, USG being US government. Response to that. Even today, pretty much every trip we've made to a doctor in the last several years has just been to get them to sign a piece of paper so we can buy the drugs that Google has already told us we need. 20 years from now, your watch will have enough sensors to detect health problems before you even know you have them, and will automatically program your home DNA printer and CRISPR machine to fix them for you. But only if the medical monopolies can be destroyed first, by the way, and also if we don't deal with the borders, all this is irrelevant, in my opinion. Going on, because let's just say not a lot of medical progress tends to occur in countries where Islam tends to rule, officially or de facto. Another comment. This whole thing seems surreal. Media, even CNN, cheering votes on like some sportscasters calling a basketball game. Ugh, this is not an effing game. What the hell are the Trump cabal and the House Republicans thinking? Rushed through after they rightly criticized Obamacare for being voted through with its many unknowns. Did I read age surcharge for 50, 65-year-olds and possibly allowing such to be 5 times the amount? You know what? If anything close to this House plan gets through the Senate, it would be more calamitous to us than the simple demand to enforce the law and destroy the current healthcare system. There is no care that can ever work at current insanely inflated charges. And that's the heart of what Denninger talks about, and he does this repeatedly through many columns, how inflated the healthcare costs are due to the monopoly system that basically occurs in the healthcare industry. Someone else writes, with a president who's so worried about fake news, today's celebration of a pretend victory is particularly galling. Truck thump. And this was published, I think, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I believe. Another. Here's a story. I imagine you've been inundated with medical billing horror stories, but I figured I'd add one more to the pile since the system seems to be spiraling ever closer to complete breakdown. I recently went for my annual physical. I have decent insurance. When I checked in with the secretary prior to seeing the doctor, I offered them my credit card since I'm usually oblivious to the details of copays. But the girl told me to put it away since my insurance completely covered the annual physical. Annual preventive care is 100% covered, she said. Great, I thought. 1 month later, I'm a bit perplexed by the $215 bill from the healthcare system. My doctor is a mere cog within this behemoth, Sutter Healthcare System of Northern California. Oh, it's funny that it's mentioned Sutter, because it was his property where the gold rush started, and basically he was left bankrupt because authority broke down there. I was reading this in the Grapes of Wrath, or maybe in the notes to the Grapes of Wrath. No, I think it was in the actual story. And, basically the workers left and people took over. They squatted on his farm and took the gold, and there was no lawful authority there. I'm digressing, but it's funny they mentioned Sutter. It probably is some metaphor that someone who knows more about it than I do can make. I called the billing office to find out what this is about. Long story short, the annual physical, which came to $373, all that for doing nothing apart for weighing me, measuring my height, taking my temperature, measuring my blood pressure, and listening to my lungs, that was 100% covered. Great. However, I still owed $215 due to a second medical appointment that occurred on the very same day. What? A second appointment? I only went to one physical that day, I explained. I spent 15 minutes with the doctor, Max, and then I went home. There must be some mistake. No, I learned, there was no mistake. Because the doctor asked me if there was anything that was wrong with me at the physical, I mentioned in passing that I seemed to be peeing a bit more frequently than normal. No problem, he said. I'll refer you to urology and they can do some tests. He banged out an email referral in about 15 to 30 seconds, and that was that. Nobody told me that merely responding to the doctor's question about anything bothering you in the middle of an annual physical created an entirely new billing code. From that point onward, a new medical appointment was created within my physical, and I was being billed for everything that happened at that point onward, including a 15 to 30 second email referral to urology. Nobody mentioned any of this before or during the appointment, and the urology issue wasn't even a real medical problem. I never intended to follow up on it, and I certainly didn't intend to cost me $215. I was merely answering a direct question from my doctor during my physical. Talk about highway robbery and outright fraud. I can't wait for the whole thing to implode, or explode, as Trump puts it. It's funny to think about the political message makers debating about which verb to use in their talking points. Regardless of whether it caves in on itself or blasts itself into 1,000 shrapnel fragments, it still stinks. And there's a response to that comment. File a complaint with the California Attorney General's office. What is their law with respect to deceptive pricing? Not exactly that, but close enough. And then there's a response to the part in there about my doctor is a mere cog within this behemoth, Sutter Healthcare System of Northern California. Bullsh. Your story proves that your doctor is a leader in the bezel, B-E-Z-E-L. I don't know what that means. He knew exactly what he was doing. And in response to the part in there about 1 month later, I'm a bit perplexed by the $215 bill from the healthcare system, blah, 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 Sutter Healthcare System. I called the billing office to find out what this is about. And then the response is, you are the reason this horse exists. You just excused a man who committed fraud upon you. He came into the room, and because you answered a direct question of his, he bleeped you out of a couple $100. He did it on purpose. Let me make this clear. You got his very crude reference, imagine a sexual act that is very much prohibited as an abomination by the part of Leviticus we just read in the Torah yesterday. Okay, and he goes on, and yet here, after the fact, you excuse his actions instead of calling him on what he did. So it was anal sex, consensual, and not rape. It is exactly this consent and excuse making that allows this horse to happen in the first place. Just a little bit more. 3 more comments. I was busy working yesterday and not paying attention to the news when I got in my car to visit a client. Flipping stations, I caught Sean Hannity saying, "This is the end of Obamacare." I did a double take and had to watch the mainstream BS media later in the evening. Even the most biased reporters know that a bill has to pass both the House and Senate and get a signature from the president before it becomes law. Is that true in this case of healthcare because of the way it was passed? I'm not 100% sure. What the hell is all the cheerleading about, or doom prophecy from the left? The media's lack of acknowledging elementary civics is infuriating, and in my opinion, intentional to incite the always available protesters. Meanwhile, the real issue of cost gets a pass. Sigh. I just don't know, because it was not, Obamacare was passed during reconciliation. I just don't know the civics. It may be a different way it can be repealed. Someone else who knows, please comment. Second to last comment. The GDP decline is already real. The 15% correction would just put it out in the open. And then the final comment. Back from ICU after 4 hand surgeries. Tomorrow I am hoping I am released so I can go and try to run my biz with one hand. When the itemized bills show up, it will be time to attack the system with everything I have. Anyway, okay, that's the last comment from Market Ticker on this particular issue, on this particular story. Point is, if you want to know about these issues, read the worthwhile stuff like Market Ticker, not Tomi Lahren videos. And if you're watching Tomi Lahren videos, at least be honest about why you're doing it. And I still think your time would be better spent going to Hooters, ordering a drink, some chicken wings, and while you're waiting for it to come out and the waitress to flirt with you like she likes you, but she probably doesn't, it's their job, you can read some of the stuff that Karl Denninger has written at Market Ticker, or many other sources that are more worthwhile than Tomi Lahren. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching.